football has become such a huge part of the American culture that it's difficult for many to imagine a USA without its number one sport. Well, this was the case just about a century ago, before the NFL was fully formed. There was no league where teams from different regions could come together to compete, and you guessed it, no Super Bowl. Now, thanks to the NFL, football is anticipated and watched by several million people worldwide, and the association itself is the wealthiest professional sport league by revenue. That's a huge feat. But before it could get where it is today, the NFL had to battle through several years of instability and rivalry. This is the story of the NFL. Welcome to Planet Biz. The first idea. Even though the National Football League was officially formed in 1920, its history can be traced all the way back to 1892. This was the year when William Pudge Heffelfinger was paid to play for the Allegheny Athletic Association, making him the first ever paid football player. Later that same year, Benjamin Sport Donnelly was paid $250 by the same association to play in a game against the Washington and Jefferson Presidents football team. This marked the beginning of professional football, which began to get more and more popular throughout the 1890s and the early 20th century. But during this time, it was mainly a regional sport, with only small, state and region-wide circuits and no international leagues or tournaments. But all that was about to change. In 1917, two New York football teams, the Rochester Jeffersons and the Buffalo All-Stars, went on a barnstorming tour of Ohio. During this tour, Leo Lyons, the manager of the Jeffersons, succeeded in setting up a game against the Canton Bulldogs of Ohio, which was the best team in the entire country at the time. Even though the Jeffersons were one of the top New York football teams, they definitely weren't in the same class as the Bulldogs, which had the legendary Jim Thorpe as their star player. Challenging them was a bold move, and to put it lightly, it didn't end great for the Jeffersons, who got beaten 41-0. Despite this terrible loss, Leo Lyons and his club managed to earn some points among members of the football community for their courage to play against such a strong team. But that wasn't all Leo was going to get out of that match. He took the opportunity to have a conversation with Jim Thorpe, during which he suggested a football league be formed. At the time, the Professional Baseball League had made it such that baseball might have as well been the only professional sport in the USA. Leo's plan was for a league to be created that would at least approach the caliber of what is now known as Major League Baseball. Leo's idea was not just great, it was doable. The league would be made up of the existing football clubs if they were interested. But unfortunately, attempts to carry out this plan were forced to come to an abrupt halt. Fatal delays. Quite a lot of football teams were on board with the idea of forming a national league. At the time, bidding wars over talented football players would erupt in some regions, particularly Pennsylvania and Ohio. These bidding wars were causing costs to escalate and basically destroying the sport. Teams reasoned that a national league would prevent top players from being stolen, reduce cost, and make sure that top talent isn't concentrated in just a few teams, but is distributed evenly. Unfortunately, the fact that other teams agreed with the need for a league wasn't enough to actually start the league. The same year Leo shared this idea with Thorpe, America joined World War I, and a lot of players answered the call of duty. The following year, 1918, an extremely deadly Spanish flu pandemic struck. There were quarantines and travel restrictions, which forced a lot of teams to halt operations or reduce their schedules. Sounds familiar, right? The next year, Lyons' vision of a football league would finally start becoming a reality. He began mobilizing teams starting from his home state of New York, challenging some professional football teams in Buffalo to a championship. Jim Thorpe's team, the Canton Bulldogs, were already part of an informal regional association, which included other Ohio teams such as the Shelby Blues, Massillon Tigers, and the Ironton Tanks. Thorpe was able to convince the manager of his team, Ralph Hay, as well as other Ohio football teams to compete under a league-style format for that year. By the end of 1919, two distinct interstate circuits had developed, one around the Midwestern region, which included states like Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, and upstate New York, and one around the eastern seaboard, consisting of mainly New York City as well as New Jersey and Philadelphia. some teams from the Midwestern Circuit were the ones who would eventually form the National Football League. The First League. On the 20th of August, 1920, representatives of 4 professional football teams of the Ohio Circuit, the Akron Pros, Canton Bulldogs, Cleveland Indians, and Dayton Triangles, held a meeting at the Hupmobile Auto Showroom in Canton, Ohio. At the end of this meeting, a national league had officially been created. It was named the American Professional Football Conference, APFC. According to the Canton Evening Repository, a local newspaper, the APFC intended to raise the standard of professional football in every way possible, and to secure cooperation in the formation of schedules. A month later, another meeting was held, this time with representatives from several more teams including the Jeffersons and the Buffaloes. After these teams were added, the league was renamed the American Professional Football Association, APFA, and Jim Thorpe was selected as the first president. Newly formed, and with a vision to become as prominent as the Professional Baseball League, the APFA laid down rules concerning player poaching and the declaration of an end-of-season champion. They agreed to respect each other's player contracts and took a stand against signing college students who were yet to graduate. Even with the laid-down rules and agreements, things were quite shaky during the early stages of the league. At the end of the season, the champion would be decided by the number of games won. The team with the best win-loss record was the official winner. However, this process was just short of chaotic because scheduling was left up to each team. As a result, some played more games than others, and some even scheduled games with non-league, collegiate, or amateur teams. Because of this, the championship title was disputed in 1925, and in 1932, an impromptu playoff game had to be scheduled in an attempt to decide the champion. Selecting a champion at the end of the season wasn't the only issue the league held. By 1921, the league had grown to 21 teams. Each membership was unstable. The league's shaky structure allowed several teams to be added and removed irregularly. To make things even more unstable, some team owners would trade their franchise in one city for another franchise in a different city. In addition to this, some teams in the league occasionally folded because of financial issues. Because of the lack of a properly structured league, football was still not yet a major national sport, and even college football had a bigger audience than professional football. But it looked like there would be brighter days ahead. The rise of the NFL. On June 24, 1922, the league changed its name, and for the first time, it became the National Football League. Through the later parts of the 20s and into the 30s, league membership began to stabilize as the NFL began to gradually take on a less informal structure. In 1933, the league stopped using win-loss records to decide the championship and switched to a playoff system. By the end of World War II, in 1946, more major changes were made to the team. The office of the president was upgraded to a more powerful one, the commissioner. Some rules changed, and there were new innovations such as the T formation, which led to a faster-paced game. Also, teams became more financially stable, and after 1952, no team folded up. For the 1958 championship, the New York Giants and Baltimore Colts went head-to-head. Its exhilarating ending, combined with the fact that it was the first nationally televised football game, made it an unforgettable game. It achieved legendary status and became widely known as the greatest game ever played. This championship caused the league to experience a popularity surge, marking the beginning of the NFL's rise to the top. These revolutionary events led to pro football finally becoming a major national sport. But this wasn't the end of the NFL's struggles. The rivalry. Throughout its rise to the top, the NFL was constantly faced with competition from rival professional football leagues during the 1930s and 40s. These leagues included at least 3 separate American football leagues and the All-American Football Conference, as well as various smaller regional leagues. The NFL was bigger than these leagues and was able to keep its place as the #1 professional football league. By the 1950s, for the first time in decades, the NFL had no rivals. It was the only football league in operation. Almost like it was too good to be true, a rival league was formed in the 60s, the Fourth American Football League, or AFL. This rival league was created by a group of aspiring professional football team owners who had tried to buy into the NFL but had failed. Unlike the NFL's previous competitors, this one would prove to be difficult to overpower. The AFL began to play in 1960. They competed with the NFL for players, lucrative television contracts, and popularity in general. This competition was mounting pressure on the NFL, as well as making players more expensive. In 1966, the NFL gave in. Several of its franchises asked to meet with the AFL owners to negotiate a deal. On June 8th of the same year, the NFL and AFL announced that they were going to merge into one league. The merger would take full effect in 1970, and the new league would keep the NFL name. After the merger, the league was reorganized into two conferences: the National Football Conference, NFC, consisting of only pre-merger NFL teams, and the American Football Conference, AFC, which consisted of all pre-merger AFL teams as well as a few pre-merger NFL teams. The climb to the top was a difficult one, but it was worth it for the NFL. Today, the NFL is the most popular sports league in North America, the sports league with the most valuable teams, and the wealthiest professional sports team. With revenue from television deals, concessions, tickets, and corporate sponsorships, the NFL makes billions of dollars each year, a big portion of which comes from the Super Bowl alone. For more inspiring business stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. This is Planet Biz.